Oh,
Hello,
hello.
everyone.
Hello. This is Left and Correct, the only podcast where both of us are left.
But only one of us is correct.
Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Happy
Uh,
Tuesday. We were supposed to have some guests this week, but both of our
but they're
guests.
coming. They're coming. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're coming. They're coming.
They're coming. Just excitement. Excitement in the Left and Correct landscape.
our fans, I mean, Reddit's just gone wild today, buzzing about potential.
Insane. Did you say? Oh, yeah. There's so much. Like our chat rooms are just all a flurry.
Oh,
And
yeah.
everybody, everyone, in fairness, everybody wants to know about me having sex with demons. And it's just like, all right, guys, like what I
You can't
do.
talk about that.
I can't
Yeah.
talk about that. Like it's my personal life,
You
like
need privacy.
yes, what I do with my spiritual journey, because sex magic is more than just getting it on. It's like it's a connection with something deeper and truer to
Mm,
manifest
mm,
your intentions and your
mm-hmm.
goals, and but being very goal oriented, it's important, and sometimes that may include a demon.
You
you
gotta.
know I know, and
You gotta
like the
include all
haters.
the cosmic entities.
Absolutely. And there's the haters out there, looking at you, Stella Manuel. Like, yeah. And so I see you. And
Stella Manuel especially hate diabolical creatures.
what? My
The Stella.
connection's not my
Well, we got another
connection's not the
connection
best
day.
today. Oh, all I
That's
heard is
okay.
so
That was one of your lovers, your demon lovers.
that's right. Yeah. Because that's right. You just stand in a dark room with the moonlight coming in, and you just,
Hmm.
and then you know, you sign the book, and
Well,
you're good to go.
you got to sign that book. You got to sign that book. Where does the devil keep all these books and names? Though that's what I wonder. He's probably got so
I
many
imagine,
names.
the devil's got a really big library. Like in Beauty and the
Mm.
Beast, it's just this huge, library with one of those ladders with wheels, and you could just go across in different levels and pick and be like, la 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 la, I see right here. You know,
Here's the thing. Uh, you know, uh, the devil shows up, shows you this book, says sign it. Now, you immediately now realize that the devil is actually real, which then means that probably heaven and hell are real, which then means why would you give your soul to this thing if you know that there's a chance you could go to heaven? That's a huge flaw. I never understand that.
well, I guess it all depends what your perception of hell is, right?
Right?
Because if you sign your name in the devil's book, you get whatever it is that you want, right? Would it
But you know
be
it's
like
temporary, and that means that you then know that souls are actually real,
that's
right?
like a currency? True, but if you are okay with fire and brimstone, and if you don't mind living in eternity in like a Hieronymus Bosch painting with like demon birds and faces on butts and stuff like that, if you're okay with that, then like why not? Because what's heaven, just like floating around with a lute? That's boring, right?
I mean, it's
But if
not
you're
eternal pain.
that's some people are into that though, right?
I mean, I guess. I don't know. I'm just telling you, if I ever found out that any sort of spiritual entity was real, I would have to evaluate my entire cosmology.
Just be like, wait a minute, if this is, as improvisers, you always have to ask yourself, if this is true, what else is true? And so
Exactly.
therefore we now exist in this world where this is possible, therefore other things are possible as well.
Do you know what would be really bad about it, though? Think about
What?
this. The devil shows up, says, sign this book, yada, yada, yada. I'll have your soul forever. So now you know that there is some sort of entity that exists that has like powers of like appearing and all this sort of stuff. But that still doesn't prove that the rest of the cosmology is true. It doesn't actually prove that heaven and hell are real. All it proves
That's
is
true.
that there's a creature in front of you with powers. So then what do you do?
Right, right. And how do we even know it's just a dude with a book? Like, how do we even know? He's just saying he's the devil. Like, what? I'm gonna take his word for it? What is this? Like it could just be some like cosplaying dude who can like, has like cloven hooves and horns coming out of his head and being like, "Ooh, wouldst thou like to live deliciously?" Like, sure, but like, I don't know who you are. Where's the?
Nobody knows. Nobody
Nobody
knows who
knows.
anybody is, really.
Show
You
me
know,
the receipts,
show me the
Lucifer.
receipt,
Come
demon.
on.
Uh, well, speaking of cloven hooves, today Attorney General Barr was testifying before Congress. Did you get a chance to watch it?
Oh, of course, because I am a masochist. Speaking about hell and inflicting pain, like in, in tandem with that, so it's what really is hell if you're watching this. It really two things struck me. In terms of being conspiratorial or whatever. I mean, but this is also not surprising. I think the people creating, I would say a majority of the people creating violence, quote unquote, in Portland, Seattle, what have you, are are in on it. Like they are white supremacists, they are boogaloos, they are anarchists, nihilists who just want the chaos, which then creates the response on the federal level, which then creates, content for the Trump campaign and puts fear into the hearts of Americans who believe what they watch without questioning it, or because as soon as you realize like why is this happening. Also, the thing I was like, oh, wait a minute, Bill Barr is in charge of this administration. It's not that I ever thought that Donald Trump was necessarily, but Bill Barr is doing the bidding of Donald Trump, working in tandem with him, is his personal lawyer. Like he took over the mantle of Michael Cohen. He's not deranged like Giuliani's become. It's very frightening. Very frightening.
Yeah, that's what a lot of commentators have been saying, that perhaps Barr is the Cheney of this administration, and we've only now just
Yes.
discovered that
Well,
somehow. It's possible. It certainly is weird that the attorney general acts as the president's attorney. I don't know if that's an official capacity, because
no,
The White
no,
House is supposed to main
he's supposed to be like the people's
right,
attorney general, like that. He's supposed to be our lawyer, not him, and
right.
certainly not in cases that directly affect the president. They're supposed to remain
Absolutely. I mean,
neutral.
that's why there's White House counsel, that exists just to protect the executive and stuff. But there is a massive history of the Justice Department being politicized. Perhaps this is more. I am no expert in that, but I was reading some about it, and depending on the president and how cozy they get, like, I mean, I guess you could say one of the people that we would probably consider more good guys, the Kennedys, obviously had a
Right.
super cozy relationship between justice and the executive.
I would say they did, considering that they all grew up together. For those, John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy were brothers, and Robert RFK was JFK's attorney
But they
general.
used that power for what I would say is good, which is to force through civil rights, in a way that was not happening. I'm sure they did a ton of evil. Also, not an expert on uh, the Kennedy Justice Attorney General. Um, but yeah, so this is a thing that's happened, and it was funny. I was reading a lot about this, and Barr gave a big speech saying that he's trying to depoliticize justice, and I'm like,
Ah,
no, you're not.
but this is classic Trumpian speak, where everything they say is exactly the opposite of what is actually happening.
Yeah,
I know the term gaslighting has been thrown out there so much, and it's lost a lot of its power, but that's exactly what's happening. Like what you're seeing is not really happening, or it's all projection, it's all lies, it's all misinformation. And it's really getting to me this week. I don't know like from Sunday to Monday. It's like oh, and it's not like you could just turn it off and go outside, because you can't go outside really, because we're in a pandemic. Can't, like, where are we going to go? Where am I going to go? It's too hot. it's 8,000 degrees outside because also the planet's dying. All the and so I'm in a mood. I've been in a mood.
I hear ya. Yeah, there's not been a ton of positive news about really anything. Certainly, the news cycle has just been in a rut the past 2 weeks, really. But you can go outside. I've noticed your Instagram. You're snapping photos of little
Oh
buildings here and
no. Well,
there.
that's what I when back in May. Everyone should follow me on Instagram, Adrian Pudding. I like to, but those aren't recent, really. Those are from walks back in May and June
Really?
when it wasn't 8,000 degrees outside. We go
Wow.
outside, walk
Fake
around, be
news
like,
Insta. Fake news Insta.
oops. Is that bad though? I mean, that's what people do. They have photo shoots and then, oh, just casually hanging out in front of the Washington Arch. Like, no, you're not. You're not down there,
That's true. You're right.
right?
Uh, I've been going back to the gym now every morning. It's been
So
great.
the gym is open.
Well, not the inside. Actually, to tell you the truth, I haven't actually checked if the inside's open, but everybody's just out there walking and jogging and doing push-ups and doing all their stuff. And there's so many kids there now. That's my
Oh,
complaint,
really?
actually. The place where we do our yoga and the little,
Yeah.
which actually is for kids.
It's
It's a
a
gymnasium.
playground. It's a playground. What are these kids doing here? Go away.
Well, we went there for months and there were never kids, and now there's like so
That's
many
true.
kids.
Because they don't have anything else to do. So, like, what are these playgrounds? I guess we'll bring the kids to the playground. Playground.
It's nice, actually. It's
Um,
been very positive experience. If you need to get away from the news, it's back. That outside area is definitely back. But we're going through this. Obviously, that's the big thing this week with Portland. And I think the reason that this is so scary is because it has similarities to, you know, past governments that have transformed themselves into fascism. Without being too hyperbolistic, there is some corollaries to like brown shirts, which I know Barr was very
yep.
mad about people calling them brown shirts.
How dare they? Oh,
How dare they?
stormtrooper.
But
Bah,
the
bah,
the
bah.
fact is, the historical perspective is there when there
Yeah.
becomes a paramilitary force that only works for the executive, and in this case, it's Homeland Security. I don't know
Right.
if you looked up much about how this whole process is happening legally, and it's like all this stuff that they're doing is on the
It's
dang
finding,
book.
yeah, it's like finding loopholes within the jurisdictions of their legalese and
Yep. Because
going forward.
what's actually happening, and here's something that really bothers me, is the fact that uh, the way that Homeland Security is even approaching this from a conceptual point is they're calling it an operation. Now, I'm sure that's just like bureaucratic terminology, but that's what the military does every time they
Mm,
go every time they project force in any other place, they call it an operation. So, this whole
right.
thing that's going on is called Operation
Operation
Legend.
Legend. Right. Which sounds like a really crappy video game, but to, which would be inspiring to people who are really into that kind of thing, right? Like, oh, okay, let's yeah, get the antifas. Um, it's interesting over the past few minutes. It started. I remember it starting with Bush, where like or of George W. Bush, like George W. Who created the Department of Homeland Security. But Bush is
Yes.
Hitler. This is just like Hitler. And then when Obama became president, Obama's Hitler. This is just like Hitler. And now here we have with Trump, where it's lots of people crying wolf. But while all of that is happening, all of these things are eroding, and I, every time he's fired someone, it's been harkening back to, oh, the Saturday Night Massacre with Nixon, or anything happens like, oh, it's Crystal knocked, and it's like, well, what we have right now is like a summer. It's like Crystal Summer. It's not just a night of one event that flips the switch. It's this ongoing assault, which becomes people have just become desensitized to it and it becomes normal. And I can already see it like on Twitter of the perceptions being like this protesters just they need to police themselves. Like this is
Yep.
just out of control. When it's not them. It's not the moms, it's not the vets, it's not the people who,
It's our own government doing
it's
it.
our own
And
government. Exactly.
what you said, I don't know, last podcast or a couple before about him doing it for video footage. That also does seem to be really clearly a part of it,
Yes.
because they're editing
Every time
footage to.
someone right. Every time they get in front of a camera, they're like, "Let's watch this video." And you're like, "What is this?" This and
Yeah,
it's n- it's taking very specific instances, very specific things out of context and weaving it together to create this narrative that we're in this violent, like any city is just under complete chaos and at any moment it's gonna fall apart when that's not true.
right.
And it yeah,
I still
yeah,
think that this law and order narrative, though, is going to either be ineffective or backfire because I think it will only help a small part of the base because there's
oh
so much
yeah,
information out there that disproves it. And
that's
also,
true.
as you move towards authoritarianism, there are elements within conservatism and republicanism and obviously libertarianism that are very against authoritarianism in any form.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially, they could have done it probably better if they hadn't sent out like the jackbooted thugs with no identification. But I
How
predict,
would Zach Sommerfield drive our country
let
into
me tell you,
authoritarianism?
everybody's wearing like all my stormtroopers. They're in bright colors. They've got
Ooh,
smiley faces on their shirts, unicorn helmets. They don't throw
wow.
they don't throw they don't throw pepper spray. They throw glitter bombs. Okay, all right, that's what they
I would
do.
be. I What is this authoritarian regime? It sounds pretty amazing.
Pow, pow! They're shooting off streamer guns, you know, and they're just making everyone have fun. That's what I would do to quell the protest.
Have fun. You will have fun, or we will beat you with these Nerf bats that
Yes,
squeak when we hit you.
yes, we're gonna tickle you. Everyone gets tickled who
Oh,
doesn't have fun. That's what I would do.
I wish. I wish. That sounds pretty good. That sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah, it sucks. It's crazy. I think it's gonna backfire on him personally. I don't know though. I mean,
I think it's because his numbers aren't going up. Like, this has been
right,
happening. Like George, since George Floyd was murdered. It's
murdered.
been
Yep,
2 months, and the protests. I know there's a lot of. It's often said like the media doesn't care about the protests, but they have been ongoing all throughout, and because they're like sharks with chum in the water. If there is violence, they will show up with their vans and their reporters.
yep,
Uh, so what's happened in Portland has ignited everything back again because people are coming out in force saying we will not tolerate this. Black lives matter. That means something. That means they matter. We show up for them, and we're not gonna let you stormtrooper brown shirts intimidate us.
yeah. But he is still
Yeah,
expanding it. It is
yeah.
moving to Chicago. It is moving to apparently Cincinnati. I was just
Uh,
reading this.
I mean, these
Um,
are all Chicago, but Chicago is a weird thing because Mayor Lightfoot is saying, "I'm accepting federal help with ongoing cases involving crime." Is that the
right,
same thing as these feds showing up at like Dealey Plaza protecting a statue? Like that's it, you know, we'll
right.
see.
They're using both things because there is initiatives of local police inviting federal DHS officers to assist in investigating crime, but they're also using Trump's executive order about monuments and statues to go in for this operation. So,
Right.
but it's any type of coup, any
But
type of
Cleveland, Ohio is a swing state. I've heard Philadelphia on this short list. Pennsylvania is a swing state. I'm sure
Mhm.
they'll go to Atlanta because Atlanta is. very purple now and could
Yeah.
potentially go blue. Phoenix, who knows? All these states that are swing states, and it's
Yeah.
just the obviousness of it is absolutely disgusting, and it I don't know, I can't
But
articulate how I
if
feel
they're in the
because I'm a
streets,
lady.
well, yes, but if they're in the streets beating people up, I don't know how that doesn't turn the locals against them, even if those locals are conservative. Am I wrong here?
That's where, well, I mean, that's what happened in because if all your the only news you're consuming is from the narrative that these people are looking to cause violence, or they're Antifa, or they're you know, radical left wing nuts. If that's all you're being fed, like that's the part about gaslighting. You keep on saying it, you keep doing it, then people will think that it's actually happening and it's true. You question your reality. Like, is this happening? This must be happening because they keep saying it. So on the one hand, it's incredibly shocking, and then you see it all the time, the discourse. Like, Americans are very quick to be like, well, what are they doing there? Well, if they just listened to the guy, then they wouldn't be doing that. Like, what, why, what are you there? Oh, you don't look like you're up to something. Yeah, Karen, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, that's when we did not live through the 60s, but when we
Nope.
watch documentaries about the 60s, we are not that old. We're older, we are older millennials, but we are not boomers. The From the tide of the things that were happening, there were, after the assassinations of like Martin Luther King, and there were riots, lots of cities burned. There was an increased police presence. Then even at the 1968 Democratic Convention, in Chicago, there was lots of police beating up protesters. A lot of them were there to create chaos, but most of them weren't. And it flipped where Nixon could use that as like, I will make sure I'll bring law and order, right? Whereas now you have Trump is in control, and he's creating this and then saying, I will bring you law and order. It's very, I don't even know if George Orwell could have created all of this, like this weird sort of doublespeak, gaslighting.
Well, he did
Uh,
create doublespeak. He invented
but
it.
he did, I
But
know that, yeah. He
but
did create the doubles, but you know what I'm saying. It's just like,
yeah, I know what
if
you're saying.
the
Honestly, it feels to
story of
me.
1920 the story of 2020 has not
Yeah.
been, was not, I'm surprised it hadn't been written before, even though it has. It's kind of like,
Well,
oh,
as we talk about it, what it sounds like to me, a lot of it feels like staging for a reality show, which would make sense
yes,
because that's his
yes.
primary field that he works
Ev-
in. You know.
Everything with him is about ratings. It's about
Yes.
getting people to love him because everyone hates him. And
Right.
it's so pathetic. And like, while this is all happening, he's just saying, oh, thank God, I'm going to be throwing out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium in August. And everyone went, huh? He is? And then, 2 days later, I had to cancel because I care so much about coronavirus. Meanwhile, none of it happened. None of it happened. He made this all up. It's a lie. He never talked to the Yankees, never approached him. He never approached the Yankees. And what? Because he's pissed off because the Nationals asked Fauci to throw out the first pitch when they had a show, when they had a game. Like, that's the level of petty that this man is like. They didn't ask me. Well, and he creates it. It's like
Right.
he's the type of person like in school who would send himself a bouquet. Like, he's like Cher and Clueless, but even worse. Where how she sends herself roses, being like, "Oh, somebody likes me," to create the impression that she's desirable. It's
Smart. Smart move.
smart.
Yeah. I mean, well, good news for you though is that if this is a reality show, he doesn't have the caliber of producers that he had on The Apprentice because he can't stay on message. Just like you said, like saying he's going to throw out the ball and then pulling it back, it doesn't help him in any way because
No,
trying to say I'm pulling it back because I'm working on coronavirus just feels stupid,
because he's
because
not.
first of all you're not, but second of all you could still be working on coronavirus and take a 5-hour flight. That's the whole thing about Air Force One. You're supposed to be able to do business
Right.
anywhere in the world. You know,
Yeah.
not that far
It's
to come and do something like that. It's just
but it's
goofy.
it, but and it, but it's fitting in who he is. Like he's always manufacturing his own content.
Yeah.
He would call people at the New York Post or the Daily News as someone else, as John Barron, and talk about Donald Trump and like talking about like how great he was in bed and like all this weird shit that of course they would just put on the front page of the newspapers in the 80s, and because what else are you going to do, right? Why talk
Yeah.
about the AIDS crisis? Let's learn about Donald Trump's divorce. Who cares? And it's just this he's PT Barnum on steroids, and the steroids are rotten, like they're rancid. That's
Sure.
exactly who he always was. And so this is just another extension of that, but this has consequences because now over 150,000 people are now dead from coronavirus. It's not getting any better. We're like heading towards the school season opening up, and like it's what we're going to sacrifice our children, we're going to sacrifice our teachers for what? Like it's
Hmm.
horrifying.
Yeah. Well, but it's good news for you because he can't keep the story straight. He,
It's not
his
it's
his failing is helping Joe Biden win. Like all
but
the polls, which polls are completely fake, but there's something to them. I'm becoming very confident that Joe Biden could probably win. Just because Trump is screwing everything up. He can't find a coherent messaging strategy.
but at the same time there's still, I mean, it's not as severe as it was in 2016 because Joe Biden's not a woman and he's not Hillary Clinton, but every single thing he does is like, oh my god, I don't, and like Politico like puts out stupid, basically uh gossip
Well,
columns
they're
about
trash, but yeah.
yeah, but people are taking this at its word, where it's just like, oh, Kamala, oh, Karen Bass, oh, like pitting all of these women, black women, against one another, whereas they are perfectly cool with each other and everything's fine. But it's just this nonsense. And again, I don't know if it's just because we're in the middle of the summer. Things are looking like people are just looking for something else to be pissed off about, creating, palace intrigue. So it's a reality show, right? Like, who's he gonna pick? But even then, it's just then people being like, well, then I won't vote for him if it's so and so. I won't vote for him if it's that. But if people listen to that, going back to the gaslighting, it's like if it's this repeated message, then it's all it takes is just a couple of tens of thousands of people in very particular swing states to be like, you know what, I'll stay home. I don't want to deal with it, and Trump will win. So
Yeah, I mean, that's 100% possible. I mean, who knows? I mean,
yeah,
Joe Biden is a rapist. So, like, he's a terrible candidate. Anyone who votes for him who thinks that they support women's rights is making themselves into a huge hypocrite, on multiple
yeah,
levels,
it's being
uh, you know,
handsy is, yeah, this is for
he
another
wasn't
episode,
handy.
but
He raped one of his people that worked for him. Like, that's a fact,
I don't think
And
he did, baby. I don't think he did, but
you don't
thanks.
believe Tara Reid?
I kind of don't. I kind of, after everything that's come out, and it look like it. It doesn't look like it.
Okay.
It
Well,
doesn't.
we'll wrap
It
it up
doesn't look
there
like it.
because we're at
What?
time.
No, it just.
I mean, we're at time. So,
Eh.
yeah. Until next time, I'm Zach Sommerfield,
And I'm Adrian Sexton.
and this has been
Left and
Left and
correct.
Correct.